I believe.
No. You have seen me before.
Yeah, but maybe not live. Yeah, we talk a lot. I know you live ins and outs. So basically, as you know, I believe in studies in the US a lot because first I did it myself, and it brought me, and second of all because I believe that it's good as a personal experience to study abroad. Okay,
For sure.
Moritz is European, like most of you. Okay, and Moritz, after studying at ESADE, with his BA there, has decided uh, to study in the US and try to stay there as an entrepreneur. He's going to tell us more about this. So we have very few students who are studying in the US. Probably next year there will be more. I know that Perico, Amin want to study in the US next year. We expect to have at least a quarter of our students to study in the US next year. So Cornell, Duke, Georgetown, MIT, Michigan, basically the school that you have applied to. And I think it's interesting that we have an interview of Moritz, who is going to share this experience with us. Huh? Okay, Moritz? Moritz,
Perfect. Yeah.
so you're in Austria, I believe now. Can you tell us more about yourself, Moritz?
Yeah. So first of all, there's much to tell, much to share because it's a long journey. But otherwise, yeah. So I grew up in Austria. Decided that I want to have this little bit more of an international experience. Went to ESADE, and there kind of really fell in love with being surrounded by people from all over the world. So that's why for me it was really interesting to move from one place to another. And yeah, now it's also, given that I have a US girlfriend, I'm just looking forward to staying and living in the US and kind of starting a new life there.
Yes, it's what you told me. So tell me, but so basically you told me that because we all know that you love tennis. So don't forget that you have the semi-final of the Rome Open this afternoon. So it's through tennis that you have decided to go abroad, but you have been to the US before going to ESADE. So tell us more about this.
Yeah, exactly. So my parents decided that after high school, or kind of, my parents initiated, but then I decided that after high school, it would be interesting to go to a tennis academy in the US, because in Austria we have the mandatory military service. But since I'm also half German, I was able to kind of avoid this. It's considered pretty much of a waste of time here in Austria. So I was really happy that I had the opportunity to go to a tennis academy in the US, kind of get this feeling of what it means to study somewhere different than in your home country. And yeah, there it was where, where I played a lot of tennis, was surrounded by international people, and then decided that this is kind of what I want, or how I want to continue.
Okay, and so then after spending 1 year in the US, you have decided to go back to ESADE to study there. Okay, why didn't you stay in the US? You didn't try to study in the US after tennis?
Because it's a huge investment, I guess. So my parents at that point already said, which is funny that, to think back now, because they always said, look, the bachelor's we would like you to do in Europe, because it's just, if you go to a private university in Europe, it's a quarter or a fifth of the price, or sometimes a lot less. Now studying in Rotterdam, where it's much cheaper than at ESADE. And so they always said, well, the bachelor's, which is 4 years, we would rather have you do in Europe, because it's just, we don't like, they said they don't think the education is so different in the US than Europe, especially for the bachelor. And I think I must agree. But one thing that I certainly realized, and that's why maybe I don't agree 100%, but when I did my exchange at UVA, so University of Virginia, I realized how much better the professors actually are, which further kind of now pushed me to only apply to US schools. Again, I have a little bit of the factor that my girlfriend lives in the US. So yeah, it was just money-wise, I guess I decided not to stay in the US. But then my parents always said, for masters, we'll consider the option of going to a US school. And I think I mean, that's maybe just my personal opinion, but I believe that the US system is really, really great. And I don't want to compare it because I don't know how the masters in Europe is, but I know that the effort that the US business schools put in developing their students is massive. And I can just compare now to how it was in ESADE. Obviously wasn't bad either.
Also now what happens is that the economic and political situation is changing, as you know, and you being in Austria, you see probably already a Central European citizen. I mean, I'm a Western, but you're more central, okay? And you can see, of course, the situation going on in Europe, and probably you must believe that you made the right choice, huh? Okay? It's so that when you told me like 1 year ago, I said, why not? But now I believe that you have really made the right choice, huh? So tell me, Moritz, you have, when you were at ESADE, you were also very active because you have created those sound consulting company. So, what has been your professional experience before starting the masters? Are you a fresher? Are you have already some experience? Tell me.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a mix of just trying to do something during your bachelor's, right? I mean, there are not a lot of people that go and do a master's right after doing the bachelor's. I think there's a majority of people that do this step a bit later. But for me, since I started ESADE, I constantly worked, and my work experience was somewhat on one hand just internships, and those were just internships kind of in Hong Kong, in Austria, and meant also I was supposed to work in the US for a while for an internship, but that fell through because of COVID. So it was kind of just a mix of taking any opportunity that comes or came my way, just to try to get as much work experience as possible. And and then the other thing was the other really big work experience, I would say, was creating Dawn Advisory, which is a startup consulting association at ESADE, Bocconi, and HKUST in Hong Kong. And this is just something that we created, a colleague and mine, after our first year, because we decided that it's very interesting to combine startups and consulting, two of our passions, and kind of bring this together. And this was super successful. So this was something that I personally did over 3 years, and it was kind of my first real entrepreneurial project, I would say, because there was a lot of unplanned things happening. And I think this is probably also what at the end of the day got me into Duke or the schools that I applied to, because it was my most meaningful work experience, I would say.
Yeah, of course. And then this year you have worked in the family business, because you had to make a transition. So tell me, Moritz, why haven't you decided, for instance, I don't know, to launch a business now and do an MBA after? Why do you want to do a master's now? Why not an MBA? What is the rationale behind that?
I think there are several reasons. I mean, one big reason is certainly that, as I mentioned earlier already, I have a girlfriend that lives in the US, so I'm bounding myself, my future to my girlfriend right now, not 100%, but I'm just really interested to work in the US. I think there are amazing opportunities. I think the US is a great country. And in order to work in the US, one must have a visa or sponsorship, at least, that guarantees you the visa. And that is just not that easy to get. And through a master's, you allow yourself to, first of all, be put in contact with companies, and second of all, all kinds of masters at least guarantee you 1 year to work in the US afterwards. And this is just a great, because I mean, if you work for 1 year in the US, then the companies at least have the chance to say, okay, we will sponsor you, we like you, and we want to keep you here in the US. And otherwise, you don't even get to this step. And then, so this is, I think, for me, the first reason why I decided to do a master's right now. just because of out of necessity. And the second reason is that since I do want to work in the US, doing a master's just allows me to create an amazing network. So for me, one thing that I was always very big into was trying to meet as many people as possible and making sure that I have people that can help me in the future as much as I try to help them. And yeah, so in a master's, I'm going to be exposed to hundreds of people who I might call my work colleagues at one point, and just friends. And yeah, I think those are my two big reasons, I would say.
Okay, so basically, there's also something that people have to understand. And I was talking to Perico and Amin, who may have a lot of questions for you, is that what you have to understand two things, guys. Is that me, for instance, when I went to the US, I had a 1-year graduate visa after the master, okay? So I did my dissertation right after, but anyway, even after the dissertation, I could stay only 1 year in the US, okay? Now, they have created something that did not exist, you know, they graduated in 98, that did not exist at my time, which is a STEM program that Moritz is going to explain to us. And we're going to see, for instance, in the selection of round that we have not selected some, like NYU, like Kellogg, because they are not STEM, okay? So basically, I would say that, according to me, if you have a 1-year graduate visa in the US, it's probably not enough to get a job, because they will, or you get a scholarship, and you get an internship, nothing interesting. But if you get a STEM, and they know that you'll be legal there for 3 years, and after that, it's easy to become a resident after 3 years of work. Anyway, company will sponsor you after 3 years. Imagine that you arrive, I don't know, it happened to me. I had one day a Nigerian guy who stayed with me, and after 6 months, he said, "Can you sponsor me so that I can stay, I can become a resident?" And I was not convinced. And the guy had to be paid like 3,000 euros per month, which is a huge amount of money. And I told him, "Look, what you have done is not convincing. I cannot sponsor you." Okay. Imagine that the guy spend 1 year with me, with MBA Center, and then can spend another 2 years somewhere else where he can do better. Maybe he could have stayed in Europe. Okay. So basically, the STEM program allows you to stay 3 years in Europe. Alors, in the US. So can you tell us the STEM program that you have picked up? Can you tell us more about the school selection that you have done? So basically, we had two constraints. We need to have a good school, a good name, okay? And that. And of course, I also have a second thing. Of course, you want to stay in the US, it's better to have a US degree. If you say with your best French accent, I'm a great guy, I studied at SBS, I don't know, SBS, they know, but I studied that at EM Lyon, you should take me. It's a grande école, they will not even understand what it is. They will not take you because they don't consider EM Lyon as a reputable school for them, even though it is. So basically, you have to see that Americans buy Americans, so they want people who have US degrees, okay? Or very reputable school. Of course, if you say, I'm a graduate from Oxford, Cambridge, LSE, they may consider it. And so on and so forth, you need to have the degree to stay, okay? Now, all that being said, Moritz, which school have you picked up and which school you have not picked up?
Yeah. No, so, I mean, you mentioned a lot already. So I think the biggest criteria for me, at least studying in the US, was really the STEM, if programs have the STEM designation. So STEM basically stands for science, technology, engineering, and maths. And if a program has the STEM designation, it means obviously you will have a little bit more of one of these 4 areas in your classical Master of Management, for example. And on this note, there are just not a lot of universities, honestly, that have carried the STEM designation. If you want to do a Master of Management, of course, if you want to do a Master of Data Analytics, then most schools have the STEM designation. But in my case, I only found 6 schools that I applied to, which were Duke, Cornell, Georgetown, George Washington, Thunderbird, and UT Dallas. And those were literally the only 6 the only 6 schools that I found that have a STEM designation and have a Master of Management. So what I kind of wanted to do.
There are probably more, Moritz. There are probably more, but let's say the 6 good ones. I'm sure that there are more than that, but let's say the 6 good ones.
Yeah, sorry. Maybe that's maybe I should maybe I should phrase it a bit differently. Six good programs that I just found for myself that I want to apply to. Maybe there's some more, but at the end of the day, there are really not many more. 100% not, because I looked through, I think, 150 schools or maybe 100 schools, and looked at their programs, and I only found these 6. So there's certainly not a lot. And what else would you want me to say?
Basically, so that you all know, is that of course if you do like a master in computer science, a master in data analytics, they want to keep you, so they will give you basically, for the Americans it's a good thing. They will get someone with strength who can work in their country, who has cost them nothing. So you're an asset for them. Okay, can you imagine when you get someone, you say the guy is going to work, pay a lot of tax, and we did not train him. Okay, so they want people like you. And of course, most data analytics, computer science programs are STEM, but few data science, few masters in management are STEM. Okay, and so basically, you have decided to do so, yeah, because because our friend Moritz doesn't want to work as a data analyst. You want to be an entrepreneur. So you will start as in consulting, but what you want to do after the masters is, of course, to be an entrepreneur right after or in the midterm. Okay. Alors, basically, we have not received the offer from Cornell now. Huh? Okay.
No.
We're taking that time.
So,
sorry.
It's still open, but
yes, it's open. But anyway, Duke is a great place. You'll have better time. The weather is better at Duke. Honestly, when I see you in your t-shirt outside in your garden, you feel much happier. It's like, I don't know, Duke is like studying at ESADE or studying at Rotterdam School of Management. Okay.
Yeah. Basically
same level, but the quality of life is not the same. It's cold in winter. Alors, so why have you picked up ultimately Duke, Moritz? What do you think attracted you to?
I think, I mean, and now I can certainly speak to it a bit more. I mean, Duke, I think, is an amazing program. First of all, it's in North Carolina. North Carolina is a pretty amazing state. It's in Durham, which is in the middle of nowhere, actually, but which turned out now later, Durham is a place where it's a really thriving place where a lot of companies and startups actually start going there. I think I read something. It's ranked by Forbes the second best city for companies, or second best city for companies to move to. So it's really it's going to be a great place if it comes to having exposure to certain companies and startups. And then on the other hand, what I really liked about Duke is their emphasis on kind of working as teams throughout the entire program. So you always put in teams of 5 people, and every class that you do, you go through with a team of 5 people. So you kind of like work on cases together. You work I don't know, on homework or whatever it's going to be together. So I think this is going to be something really valuable, because you have this extra component of really getting to know people. And I think everybody knows if you are in a group of people, it's just more things are happening around you. And I think this was for me the deciding factor to decide between Duke. If Cornell would have said anything, Duke and Cornell, but at the end of the day I decided between Duke and Georgetown. And yeah, I think those are probably my biggest reasons. And then one more reason I would like to highlight, because I think a lot of people will probably ask themselves the same thing. If you have 2 schools that you got accepted to, and one school is in a major city like DC, Washington, DC, another school is in Durham, North Carolina, which is a really small city. It's not known, it's not going to be much of a nightlife or anything. My suggestion is to go with the school that is not in a bigger city, because me having talked to people, I realized that a lot of people that went for a master's have the same opinion, which is that if you are in a big city like Washington, DC, yeah, you're gonna have the nightlife and you're gonna go out to party and all that. But most of the time, the people are gonna be a bit more individualistic. There are people that are gonna have their own friends, so they will go out with their own friends. I mean, of course, you can, if you're a nice guy, you can make it to go out with them as well. But I think if you are in a small city like Duke, the people are just all in a bubble. So everybody's kind of only doing things with really only the people that are in your program, instead of, you know, just maybe friends that, if I would study in Vienna, I would probably also go out not only with the people that are from my program, but with the people from that I know already. So this was a really big deciding factor for me as well, because in the beginning I wasn't sure, because I was like, well, am I going to miss the big city? Am I going to miss out on some opportunities? Also networking, obviously, but what I got out of this was that certainly not. I personally think, and I can talk about this next year again, Uber, I personally think that living in a small city and with, you know, in a city that nobody knows, only living with your people from the program is an advantage. So yeah, those are probably my three reasons why.
Yeah, you're right. And plus, you live in the south of the US. People here, maybe they don't know what it is, but of course, people are cool, more relaxed. And there's also something that you have to explain. There's something like what we call the South Belt. Huh?
Yeah.
Basically, it includes Arizona, California, Arizona, Texas, and South and North Carolina. And so this part of the world take advantage of the oil, of the technology, of the knowledge. So it's pretty well developed. Huh?
Yeah.
By the way, I had been accepted to Duke as well, for information, and I didn't go. And of course, I went to visit after that because I went to visit Georgetown, etc. And it's of course it's a nice place. And for European, you feel at ease. Now, of course, it's true at the same time, Moritz, that if you want to live a US experience, go to Durham, North Carolina. Of course, now if you want to be in something in the city that is more global, etc., that you know you're not going to stay, maybe Washington is an option as well. Especially Washington, you know, you're next to Virginia. There's a lot to be done there. So before we go to the next step, you know, I have two students that I like a lot. There's my dearest Amin, that are convinced to study in America, because Amin is from Tunisia. So I say, Amin, you're Tunisian, you have studied in Europe, so now you have to go to the US. And I say, oh, yeah, Dr. Hubert, you're right. Amin, you have any question? Amin?
First, congrats, Moritz.
Thank you.
No, so far, everything was clear.
So basically, you understand that if you want to stay in the US for some time, the best thing is to find a STEM program. And you have the list. Okay, that's the same thing I advise you. For instance, with Moritz, we did not apply to Kellogg. And of course, I was not I did not agree too much with him, because I said, look, maybe Kellogg is not a STEM program, but it's a big name. So normally, if you have a big name, you can normally get a job. And if you get a job and you have a school that has a big name, normally they will sponsor you to stay. And you don't want to take the risk, because I think that, unlike me, when I went to the US, I knew that I would come back to Europe. Moritz wants to stay and live in America. So, of course, in this situation, you have to say Duke is good enough. Okay, the school is known. When you send a Duke graduate anywhere in the US, they say, wow, congratulations. We always say that Duke is somehow the Harvard of the South. So you say, okay, well, you come from the Harvard of the South. So honestly, no problem. And so it's enough. You know, it's when you come back to Europe that maybe Kellogg is a name that sells better, but he knows that he's not going to come to Europe anytime soon.
On that note, I have something else to say on that, actually, which I wanted to see if that opportunity comes up again. But so I talked to somebody already that did the MMS program last year, and I was connected to this guy through the, you know, once I got accepted. And he told me something really, really interesting. He told me that he got accepted in New York to Deutsche Bank as an investment banker. And even before he starts working now, he already got a sponsorship for H-1B. So even though he didn't even work there yet, the company decided already that they are going to do their absolute best to keep him in the US, even though they wouldn't have to, because he would have 3 years where he could work in the US without even getting a visa or, you know, H-1B, you know, kind of, that's I think they call it permanent residence or I don't know exactly permanent visa status. So it is for sure true that good schools, if you come from a good schools, there's probably a good chance that the companies are gonna still kind of sponsor you. And even though you only have 1 year of OPT, so the 1 year where you can work in the US, within this 1 year, you're probably gonna find the opportunity to stay in the US for longer if you wanted to.
If you could, but of course you have to be good.
Yeah.
But if you're good, there should be no reason. Yeah.
Yeah, that's just something I didn't want to take the risk. So that's why I really only applied to STEM programs, because for me it wasn't just it just wasn't a risk that I wanted to take, and I didn't hear this ever before from anybody. But I'm sure that I'm gonna ask this more people if this happens to them, just to be able to, advise people a bit better in future. Yeah, I guess that's just the last bit of advice I wanted to give here, because it is possible to stay in the US. Yeah, maybe you have to be lucky. There are other factors as well. I mean, if you want to be an entrepreneur, then maybe it's also easier if you have, the option at least to stay in the US for 3 years already guaranteed, because maybe you want to work at a company that is maybe not so demanding, such as Deutsche Bank investment banking. You just want to work at a smaller company, so that on the side you can build your business. So yeah, just with the OPT 3 years, it's really great, but it depends on your plans, I guess, is what I would advise here.
Yes, exactly. So basically, from what I've heard, now they seem to have a shortage in some jobs. So of course, I'm surprised that it's for investment banker at this level, and they will do anyway. If you could, they will do everything to offer you a job. Me, it's funny because to give you an idea, last time I was contacted by a company. Say, can you come to London? And I said to myself, well, I have to go to London. I live in Belgium. It's not easy. So no, it's costly as well. Okay, I say I have a lot of work, and I went there, and you're surprised to see the type of job offers that they can give you. No? It's completely crazy. No? So it's true that it's what I was explaining. I was talking to a friend, you see, Moritz from Armenia, and I said the thing that now the gap between the countries is enlarging. Okay, and now you have something huge in this. And even now between Europe and the US, the gap is going to increase as well. Perico. So Perico is from the Basque country. Okay, Perico, you have a question to ask? Perico?
Yes. Hello.
Yeah. Perico wants to be in the US, and he's going to do an internship with Goldman Sachs this summer, and he will be in Poland. Perico, am I right? Or unless you have changed your plan?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I know my students. So go ahead.
So congratulations.
Question. Yeah.
Firstly, and I have a question. There is any difference in the curriculum between Duke and Georgetown to make the choice to go to Duke?
It's a good question. I think the reason why I decided that I thought the curriculum is more attractive at Duke was, again, what I said earlier, that it's just really collaborative. So maybe this, if you want to consider this as if you want to consider this as a reason to choose one curriculum over the other, for me it was. On the other hand, they're very, very similar. So really, I think if it just comes to the classes, Georgetown and Duke offer the same classes with a few little differences. I think Georgetown, you would learn, programming language R and Python, and at Duke, you're only gonna learn R. So I mean, yeah, I would say they're very, very similar, with a few differences, but not too notable. So I think in massive management, everywhere it's going to be very similar. Let's say everywhere at the top schools, I think they're going to be very similar. Versus if you would compare the curriculum between Duke and UT Dallas, which is still a really good school, I think that there were certainly a lot more differences, and I definitely like the curriculum of Duke more than the one of Georgetown, UT Dallas.
Okay, so that's the thing. So yeah, because you have to see these programs, is general management programs are all a bit similar, and they also copy each other. You know, if there's something that is better, so you have to see the top schools really follow what's going on, and they have a sort of intelligence that analyze the program. So when I talk to programs, I'm surprised to see how well they know the other programs. They don't want to be behind. Huh? Theo, I know that you follow my post because I see your name and your face is familiar because we have already spoken via LinkedIn. Do you have a question for us, Theo? Hello?
I don't have a specific.
Yeah. And the sound is very bad, Theo. We cannot hear. Yeah.
Difficult question for
Theo?
this one. But yeah, congratulations. Do you hear me?
Okay, we cannot hear you very well. We cannot hear you very yeah. So is it better now, Theo? Can you try? Are you at
No,
headset
not.
now? Are you at headset?
I don't have special,
Yeah, it's
special
better now.
question.
Go ahead. Okay, you have nothing. So it's nice to see you, Theo, to finally talk to you. Huh? I think that you're going to join us soon. Now, basically,
I'm
now
sorry,
that,
I don't hear you well.
okay, so you cannot hear me well, and I cannot hear you well, Theo. Okay, so maybe if you want to ask a question, write your question maybe in the chat, maybe because we cannot hear you well, Theo. Alors, basically now, Moritz. So the big thing that's been our story together, the preparation. Okay, what it is like to prepare. Okay, and of course, I would like to say that I know Moritz quite well, but one thing that I know, Moritz is not the type of guy who gives up. He's a fighter. He has a strong will, and when he wants to do something, he gets it. Even though he looks like a cool guy, and he's a cool guy, okay, but he has a strong will, okay. So what was it like?
I have a strong will.
Yeah, you're strong will, yeah.
Unless you're ultra smart, then maybe it's you come by just being like when we talk about the GMAT. If you're super smart, then that you can do the GMAT. I'm not one of these guys that is ultra smart. So
no, but you're smart, Moritz. But simply you're not a math guy, okay? You're not a quant, okay? Voilà. That's why you want to do mastering in data analysis. You have great communication skills. You write well. You're more like a liberal arts, social science guy than a quant, okay? Bon. And we know that when you're more liberal arts, social science, you're disadvantaged on the GMAT, okay? So it has nothing to do with you how smart you are. Just that simply it's not a test designed for social science, liberal arts background that Moritz is. Okay. Now, what it is like to prepare for this elite masters, Moritz?
I think the first thing that one should just know that no matter, no, maybe I'm going to say it a bit different. I think the first thing that one should know is that the GMAT is the GMAT, and the GMAT is really, really important. So I think that is probably the first thing that I would think about when if I would apply again. I would just be like, look, let me first take care of the GMAT and then everything else. Because the GMAT is something that might take a lot longer than one planned to do initially. I mean, it was the same thing in my case, but I'm just giving an overall overview. I guess, Uwe, you're going to ask me some questions later again. Yeah, it's just, there's a GMAT and you got to get a good score in the GMAT, and then you start your application, and you have to also make sure that at the same time you're not only studying for the GMAT, because you also want to get some work experience in, or something that I didn't end up doing at the end of the day, but which I wish that I would have done, which was something that Uwe suggested, was doing some certificates, some Coursera certificates, because it is true. If you put this on LinkedIn and you have 5 certificates, it's anybody that looks on your LinkedIn, which the business schools are going to do, and they see a Wharton name on there, and it's super easy to do a Wharton course or get a Wharton certificate and whatever. It just looks good, especially if you have several certificates. And this is probably something that I would do a bit differently this time. And yeah, I hope this is generally the overview, but I think the only thing that I really talked about was the GMAT, because I think the GMAT at the first step is the most important.
Yeah,
please ask.
So basically, yeah, it's true. So basically, what the problem that we had with Moritz was the math part of the GMAT. Okay, for the verbal part, it was easy. because you can see he speaks very well, so it was not an issue. But when you were at school, at high school, you did not say too much math. Then you went to play tennis for 1 year. Then you went to ESADE where you don't do that much math. So he has not evolved in an environment where he has to practice math. So that took time. But after that, it was easy. And I'm sure that Moritz, with more work, could have reached the 680, 690, but the score that he had was more than enough. So basically, the most difficult part, of course, is the GMAT, but you know all of you, Perico and Amin, you have been with us, okay? So by the way, Moritz has used the same platform as you. He has used Expert Global, remember, and I've been able to track his results. And of course, we have noticed one day that you reach another level when you decide to reach the 650, 660, and that's when you decide to take the test. So, so all that to tell you that Expert Global is a good tool, and you should use it. Moritz has used it, and all the people that I know have used it. Okay. Basically, Moritz, why do you think that you have been accepted to all the schools where you have applied? Why it has been a grand slam for you?
I think my work experience was quite attractive in the sense that I worked at several companies already before. I think the schools also saw that maybe I'm a person that is really engaged, or knows, or committed to proving himself, or working at companies even though I wouldn't really need to, because I was studying or whatever. And then I think Dawn Advisory, which I mentioned, was certainly also a big factor in it, because that came up in interviews a lot. They were really interested, and it was just a good story. And on that note, I think it's just really important that one has a good story to tell. I think this would really be the #1 advice that I could give, besides the GMAT, is to now start thinking already, what is your story, and what is the story that you want to tell in the essays, and what is the story that you want to tell in the interviews, because you have to tell them something, and you have to basically show them that what you have done so far is you did it because you want to get somewhere in the future. And I think I made this very clear in my applications and my interviews, that everything that I did in the past had a purpose. And I just created a good story, I guess, out of it. The GMAT, as Hubert, you said already, was 640, which is really good. I agree as well. I'm 100% certain that with maybe more focus on my part, and this is certainly something that, if you want to discuss this, because I can openly and freely talk to this, you have to be really focused on a GMAT, but that wasn't the question right now. I think for me, it was just having a good story, and probably just having a good story, being able to tell the universities why you did what you did.
Okay, so basically, I believe that I know why. Sorry, Moritz, they took you. So basically, Moritz graduated from a good school, ESADE. He had a good GMAT. He's international. Okay, so it's something that they like, So that's something. And I don't think that they have that many Austrian or Germans applying. Okay, so they need diversity. So he was an element of diversity. He has leadership experience. Okay, because he has created his own company and he wants to be okay. Then what else? On the quality of his work experience, he had some internship. He's young, so it's enough. Then I would say after that, that's something that is more difficult to determine, is the right fit with the school. And I don't know Duke well enough to tell you, but I have the feeling that they have considered that he fits well with the school. So basically, in terms of person, how will he fit with the school, the environment, with others? And finally, the rationale between what he wants to do and what the school can offer. If you say you want to do something that the school cannot offer you, they will probably not take you. So basically, for all these reasons, okay, they took him. Okay, so I was pretty confident that after we have the GMAT and working on the application, there should not be too many problems. I'm sure that, by the way, Cornell will take him, but it's probably too late. And I don't see why you should refuse Duke for Cornell. Okay, Duke for Harvard maybe, but Duke for Cornell is basically the same league. It's at the same time Cornell is what we call an Ivy League, but it doesn't mean much today. What piece of advice would you give, Moritz, to someone who wants to apply for a top business school, especially in the US?
I said it earlier already. Really, and there are many advices that I would give here. One is start studying for the GMAT really early. Start kind of engaging with that early, get a good feel for it, and then just know that at one point you have to be really committed to improving your GMAT. So on this note, this was my problem because maybe it's just a little bit of arrogance or whatever. There was a GMAT, but I wasn't 100% focused on it. So I think with if one is 100% focused on it and really knows that the GMAT is important, even though you're not the brightest mind, it's, and you have the time also, because it takes time, you can get a good score in the GMAT. So this would be a first advice. Start thinking about the GMAT early. Then probably the second thing is what I said also already. I would really do some certificates, Coursera certificates, especially if there's somebody out there that says, I'm not sure about my work experience. Do some certificates and things that interest you, maybe also things, a good mix between things that interest you and things that might look good on, I don't know, might look good on a CV, like for example, some quantitative or financial and quantitative analysis or something like that. But certainly also things that interest you. The third thing is start with the application early, because there are application deadlines, and they have application deadlines for international students, and they have application deadlines just for everybody. And I think the earlier you apply, the easier it is to get into the schools, because there are more open spots. So when we talk about Cornell, for example, I think the reason why we haven't heard anything back from Cornell yet, and why I would see this as one reason why they wouldn't take me, is because I applied outside of the international international applicants deadline. And it could just be that Cornell is Cornell and says, well, you didn't apply early enough, and that's why we don't take you. That was for me an issue. Also, again, that's why the advice comes. I didn't work on or start my applications writing the essays early enough, because this is something that really takes a long, long time. And Hubert, just wanting to make sure, you're still there?
Yeah.
Okay, because you're frozen, but.
Sorry, no, I'm still there. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, start like writing the essays early, start, really knowing the schools that you want to apply to, start figuring that out early as well, so you don't have to research 100 schools at one point. In my case, it was difficult because I wanted a certain program, right, with the STEM. And I don't know if I have any other advice.
Yeah,
right now.
it's good. So basically, where Moritz is right, you should say there are things in your resume that you can change, and things in your resume that you cannot change.
Yeah.
Okay. And of course, you cannot change your age, you cannot change your nationality. Okay. But what can you change? You cannot change your grade. Okay. But what can you change? You can change your GMAT. Okay. 650 is not a 550. Okay. And of course, as Moritz said, when we do we have a seven pointer CV at MBA Center, and one of the 7 points is extra training. So that's my student when they say, I have a bachelor, I have a master, to also, but extra training. And of course, today, Harvard, Stanford, Wharton, the top schools, Oxford, they offer extra trainings, okay, through Coursera usually. And of course, it's a good thing to have. You understand?
Yeah.
And finally, leadership activities as well, and hobbies. So basically, imagine that you say, I want to apply, we send my application in January. What can I do? My GMAT, I can be involved in the French-Tunisian Chamber of Commerce, as far as Amin is involved, etc. So there are still many things that you can change to improve your resume. Don't forget that schools will consider, as I told you, the 6 things that I mentioned, the 6 criteria that I mentioned with Moritz. 1, of course, your grades and your GMAT. 2, your international exposure. 3, the quality of your work experience. 4, your leadership. 5, the right fit with the school. And 6, also the rationale between your project and the school. Okay, if these 6 work, okay, even with a an acceptable GMAT, you can get many schools. Okay, basically you have to be balanced, well organized, and of course something that Moritz did and that he did not mention, make a network with the school. I remember, I don't know if I remember. I mean, when we had another Austrian person, when we had Yunus, remember what he said? He said that one of the reasons why LBS took him, when he asked them, he applied with a 630 Moritz for Master in Finance. And they say, yes, we appreciate that you have followed many webinars. So it's very important, I would say, for you, Theo, for you, Amin, for you, Perico, when you apply, you should have someone to talk to, say, hey, Johnny Joe, I've applied. Oh, great. I mean, I'm going to read your application with great interest. You have to come to that, okay? But the guy knows you, likes you, and wants to read your application. If you reach this level, okay, believe me, it won't be very difficult. Okay. Now, basically, for some schools, it may be difficult. For Columbia, for MIT, I don't think that it works, but NYU, Duke, Cornell, they need good students. So if they have identified you when you apply, they will help you, and they will be very keen to receive your application. Okay.
True.
So Moritz, it was very nice. I don't know if we ever meet one day.
I hope we
I'm
do.
sure that we'll meet. I'm sure that we'll meet one day.
We will.
It's impossible we don't meet. But at the same time, you're traveling, I'm traveling, and of course, it was very nice to work with you. We had ups and downs, but that's what happened with human things, and that were because sometimes things happen to you in your life, and so you know what I mean. And I'm
Of
happy
course.
that you have been there, because you would have been a great figure. And that's something that I would advise you to go to do. If you start, go to the end. Okay. I would say that failing, if you have done everything to succeed, okay, is one thing. Failing when you have not done the maximum, it's another thing.
Yeah.
You agree? No?
That's true.
Collapsing and failing are not the same thing. Okay. The last time
It's
I was
easy.
in contact. Sorry.
It's easy to quit. It's easy to quit on the process, but I think sometimes one has to push themselves, because it's life is not going to be easy. And I can also, that's probably also good warning. There are going to be times where things are just going to be difficult, especially with the GMAT. I've heard it from so many people. It's just one just can't quit, because those difficult times are going to arise. But yeah, I think everybody, unless plans change, things, one will regret that decision.
Remember, I was a tennis player when I was young, and I had my brother who was even a better tennis player than I, Jean-Luc. And sometimes we had friends who were complaining that tennis was difficult, etc. They felt a bit sick, it was difficult, whatever you can see when you go in the media and you ask tennis players or football players or boxers how they feel. And I remember that my brother would say, you can come to work with me in a factory, and you will see what a difficult life is. Okay, you understand? So honestly, applying the GMAT to go to Duke is not difficult compared to someone who works with from Kharkiv, who has his house was destroyed by the Russians, and who doesn't know what his life is going to be, and with a refugee now in Poland. Okay, so consider that honestly, you're very lucky when your only problem in life is the GMAT. Believe me. Okay, because you have people who have other problems in life. You come from Tunisia. You see the life of the citizen of your country. Okay. Well, Moritz, was very nice. I hope that I will see you.
Pleasure.
And so next week we'll receive, I believe, Denise from Georgetown and Mayati from ISB Bangalore. Thank you very much. It was always a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Great. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you very much.
Welcome. Sorry, guys. I actually didn't want to hang up. If anybody wanted to ask some more questions, I would be happy to help.